If I just spread my wings, I can fly. I can fly. I can fly. Oh, oh, oh. I can fly.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What do you believe? That's really our lesson today, isn't it? What do you believe? What do you really believe? What do you have faith in? What do you have faith in? I'm going to suggest to you right now, you have faith that there's something holding you up. Something including the chair. There's something holding you up right now. You and I are being upheld. We are being lifted. We are being supported. And we are being created. And we are actually participating in that creation. You and I are actually in the midst of a milieu. Isn't that a great word? A milieu. A milieu of creative goo. And you know, this week our lesson is really about how that all comes about, and it's really about what is going on in us that's helping to bring about whatever is happening, not just out here, but what's happening in us, through us, out here. I came across this old BC comic strip, and it says, "What is faith? Faith is blowing a dog whistle while hanging off a cliff and knowing that Lassie will hear it." I love that one. There was actually a man of the cloth that was giving a talk about this relationship between fact and faith. And he says that you are sitting here before me in church is a fact. That I'm standing here speaking from this pulpit is a fact. That I believe anyone is listening to me is faith. So we're here to talk about not just faith, but we're here to talk about what is the power and the activity that is at work when we are using our faculty of faith. We have a tendency to, from much of our traditional upbringing, to think that faith is simply a statement that we make that says we believe something. How many know what I'm talking about? When I grew up in the Methodist Church, we had these creeds that we said, and they called them statements of faith. And basically, I believe in God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. You guys, some of you know these. They had little different versions in each different denomination, I know, but they were considered statements of faith. In a sense, they were affirmations, and yet they were actually not necessarily in a real positive sometimes. They were really more of a statement of faith and mixed with a real statement of fear. Yeah. And so I remember being in the Methodist Church, and I loved the Methodist Church. There are many things about the Methodist Church that really spoke to me, and as I grew up in it, it was a very good, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the Bible. I learned a lot about the teachings of Jesus. I learned a lot about the spiritual Christian principles. And it was really, what I've experienced was in the Methodist Church, they tended to be, in many ways, a lot more open-minded than some others, and that really spoke to me. But I remember finding myself in the Methodist Church when I was in my 20s, going through and making these statements of faith, and I realized that at times I was not saying parts of them. Anybody else know what I'm talking about? Yep. I would say the parts that I really, really accepted and believed, but I wouldn't say the other parts. And then I reached a place where there were several of them. I went, well, I was only saying about 2 or 3 sentences. And then I realized, wait a minute, something's not working here. Maybe I need to really consider where I'm at. And so I really began looking and searching, and I really began looking for a different, for me, a deeper understanding of some of these ideas and principles that actually were being talked about, but I don't think that, for me, they were really getting to an essence of some real spiritual connection in my life. And I'm not saying that it's wrong, I'm just saying that's where I was at the time, and I needed to move into more exploration and find different things. And eventually, I wound up through a lot of trial and error, meditation and prayer and confusion, and then getting clarity through my prayer times of discovering this little thing called unity. And there was an aspect of that that really spoke to my heart. And one of the big and powerful things that spoke to me was this understanding that came to me actually from a book that was given to me by my father. And the book that was given to me by my father back when I was in college and back when I graduated from college was a book by James Allen. And the book is called As a Man Thinketh. How many are familiar with this work? It's a powerful classic work, and I tend to give it to young people when they're graduating because it really is one of the most amazing teachings about this understanding and principle that we have in unity, that thoughts themselves are creative. We are in the midst of creating our outer experiences in life, whether we are aware of it or conscious of it or not, and the reality is a good bit of the time we're not conscious of it because it's running through what we call our unconscious or subconscious mind. And so a lot of times what we're doing is we're creating out of our conditioned program. And our conditioned program is there for a purpose. It's there to kind of help keep us, in a sense, grounded in the world. And it also helps us stay, in some ways, connected with those around us because it's a part of what Charles Fillmore called the race consciousness. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious. We all have, last week we talked about this understanding that there's one mind. And this one mind, we're all a part of that one mind. We're all aspects of that one mind. We're all expressions of that one mind. And the thoughts that are in us are a part of that one mind, and they're part of collective mind as well. And the collective unconscious are a list of or a series of unconscious ideas and thoughts and belief systems that we have all on some level agreed to. And we have agreed that this is what we call that thing called reality. I loved it. I think it was the first one I remember hearing it saying it was a comedian called Yakov Smirnov. He said, reality, what a concept. I'm going to say it again because it is a concept. What we think of reality is ultimately our conception of what is real. And so as we are really getting some awareness of this, it's important to recognize whatever our concept of reality is how reality is going to show up for us. We see the world not as it is. We see the world as we are. And we see the world based upon our own energy, our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own emotions, and our own, as we say in Unity, our own consciousness. Consciousness is a big word that kind of includes all those. Thoughts, feelings, attitudes, beliefs. And one of the things that there's a creative process that's going on, and the creative process works primarily this way. We have a thought, and that thought creates an emotion. And that thought and that emotion creates an attitude or a belief, or both. And that attitude or a belief creates an experience. And then we have an experience, and we have a thought about that experience. And then we have an emotion about that thought. And then we have an attitude and a belief that gets either created or reinforced based upon that way of thinking. So I'm going to suggest to you that this is how most of the time we are in the process of creating. But I'm going to suggest to you that that is, in a sense, a reversal of the creative process. And the reason why I say that is because before we have a thought, let me ask you another question. Some of you have heard this idea. What came first, the chicken or the egg?
The chicken.
The chicken came first? Oh, okay.
The egg.
And the egg came first, okay. I'm going to suggest to you that an idea came before both of them.
That was a trick question.
That was a trick question. There was an idea of life, perhaps as an egg or perhaps as a chicken. And what we are really learning in terms of metaphysics is to understand that before anything, even a thought, comes to us, there is an idea in the mind of the divine. And whatever thought we are holding in our awareness or consciousness is in some way trying to express an idea that is in the mind of the divine. And that idea may be an idea of life, but because we have narrowed down our conception of what life is and can be, sometimes we are participating in creating what seems like something other than life. There's a divine idea of absolute abundance. But we oftentimes have thoughts that don't seem to reflect that. And sometimes those thoughts are thoughts that somehow seem opposed to this idea of abundance. But there really is only one reality. And the reality is that there's only life. And the reality is that there's only abundance. But because we have the ability and been given free will over this thing we call our mind, which is a misnomer also because there's really only one mind, really, right? The thing we call our mind is really a bubble or an aspect or a wave in an ocean of the thing we call the one heart and the one mind. And the one creative process. And there's a creative process at work right now that is expressing in some way a divine idea. It's expressing that divine idea through your physical form. And the divine idea that it's expressing is the divine idea of life. And because we participate in this creative process, we have the ability to think in certain ways, and then we are actually giving form to that thing we call life. And that giving form may take the form that we are calling this physical body, or it may take the form of a particular cell in this physical body, and it may take the form of some dis-ease in this physical body, because we have the power to create. We have the power to create. We have the power to hold a thought, an idea, an awareness of life as being whole and perfect and complete. And as we do that, we're participating in helping to bring more of that into our outer experiences. And this is how Charles and Myrtle Fillmore were able to go through this process of healing for themselves, is that they really got that there was this divine idea called life. You know, Myrtle Fillmore was diagnosed with tuberculosis. And at that time, tuberculosis was a death sentence. Tuberculosis actually at that time was a kind of a catchphrase that was used to describe a number of different ailments, and it was believed and thought that it was genetic, and it was passed down through generations. And her family, many people had died in her family from tuberculosis. And Myrtle Fillmore went to a lecture by a man by the name of E.B. Weeks, and E.B. Weeks made a statement that really stuck in her awareness. And the statement was, "You are a child of God. Therefore, you do not inherit sickness." You are a child of God. Therefore, you do not inherit sickness. You don't inherit it, you adopt it. That's the way I'm putting it. I'm going to suggest to all of you, all of us, myself included, that we don't inherit sickness, but we do adopt it sometimes. And we adopt it from the race consciousness. We adopt it from this collective idea and belief system that is running through our unconscious and subconscious mind, that there is this ability to have and express something other than wholeness and other than life. And because we have accepted that on some level, usually on an unconscious level, then we live that out. There's a belief system in the race consciousness that somehow that love can exist here, but it can't exist over here. And I'm going to suggest to you it's an illusion. God is love. So when you're saying that love can exist over here but not over here, you're basically saying that God can exist here but not over here. But in unity we have this understanding that there really is only one presence and one power. And that one presence and the one power is everywhere present, all the time, and is always not just loving, but is the power and the energy of love itself. And the more we can tap in and tune into the quality, the power, the consciousness, the energy that is love, then what we find is that there really is nothing other than that. There's no separation. This is the primary message and the essence of what the Course in Miracles says. There's only love. All else is an illusion. An illusion is basically a belief system. You know, if you're driving down the highway, how many of you, I know you've had this experience. One of the things I'm going to share with you is that soon after our service today, I'm actually heading up I-35 all the way to Kansas City. I'm going up there to see Belinda Lightheart be ordained. I'm just real thrilled about that. So looking forward to that road trip. But have you ever gone down the highway? I know in Texas it's pretty easy to do this. Go down the highway, and as you're looking down the highway, you see what looks like water on the highway. Or have you been in the desert, and you look out and you see what looks like water out on the highway? And as you get closer, there's no water. Where did it go? It looked just like water, didn't it? And I'm going to suggest to you that something was there. There was something there. It was a mirage, an illusion. But just because it was a mirage or an illusion doesn't mean there wasn't something there. You were seeing something. And what you were seeing was energy. The heat rising off of the desert or rising off of the pavement, which is a vibration, isn't it? You were seeing a vibration. And that vibration, to you, in your mind, had an appearance. It was translated into an appearance that appeared to be water. That's what an illusion is. And everything that we see out here is basically a vibration. I was listening to a scientist speaking this last week, and one of the things he was saying is that everything in the universe ultimately is either sound or magnetism. Sound or magnetism. And he basically said they are basically two sides of the same coin. Sound and magnetism are the same thing ultimately. They're all vibration. Ultimately, everything out here is energy, is what he's basically saying. And the reality is, so are you. What you see as your physical body is energy. It is a vibration. And the thoughts that you hold in your head are actually energy. They're a vibration. And the vibration of those thoughts has an effect. And the effect is to generate another vibration, which is an emotion. And our emotions are energy. They're either sound energy or magnetic energy or a little of both. And I'm going to suggest to you that they're magnetic. And that the thoughts we hold with the energy and the emotion and the feelings are actually like a magnet. And they actually attract to us other experiences that are based upon the thought and the feeling that are going on in us in the moment. And so if you have a thought and a feeling of wholeness, what you're drawing to you is more wholeness. But if you're holding a thought and a feeling of here's the way, even if you're holding a thought and a feeling on a subconscious level of a little bit of wholeness, a limited amount of wholeness. You follow what I'm saying? We have a tendency to be able to think in small pieces, but we can't seem to get the whole picture sometimes. And what we're really doing is really kind of narrowing down and limiting. And when we limit it, we are actually creating that which is limited. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so we want to really look at and be conscious of and become conscious of some of the things and ways that we are limiting. How do you limit love? Do you have a belief system that says that there's only so much of it? And that somehow you've got to get it before you can give it?
Well, you don't want to give it to somebody who doesn't deserve it.
Oh, and you don't want to give it to somebody that doesn't deserve it. Yeah. And so that really holds a belief system also, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. That holds a belief system that says that somehow that love has to be deserved. And that's really a belief system that's really keeping us all stuck. Because the reality is nobody deserves love. Nobody deserves love. Nobody. Nobody deserves love. Because deserving has nothing to do with it. Love is. And you are loved. And you are loved. And you are loved. Because that is the way the divine is. The divine is love. And God doesn't love you. Charles Fillmore said this. God doesn't love you. Oh, Eric Butterworth. Let me correct myself. Eric Butterworth said this. God doesn't love you. Oh my gosh. How can you say that? That's blasphemy. Well, what if it's not? He said God doesn't love you. God is love. God cannot help but love because that is the nature of the divine. And it never stops. It never has stopped. It never will stop. But if we have a belief system that there has to be some kind of, that somehow there's something that we have to do in order to deserve that, we are creating a limitation. We're creating an illusion. We're creating something that doesn't really exist. Now, it's going to exist to us. It's going to look just like the water out on the highway. And it's going to seem real. And it's going to seem like we have to do something in order to get love. It's not true. There's absolutely nothing that you can do to get more love. And there's absolutely nothing you can do to have less love. I love what Matt Kahn teaches. He says in his book, whatever arises, love that. Everything and everyone that you experience in your life deserves more love. You deserve more love. Those parts of you that you have trouble accepting deserve more love. You are created in the image and after the likeness of the divine, which means that you are created of love. And you're created of the creative power that is love. And you're created of the creative power that is always creating. And so we're given an option. We're given an opportunity to make a decision, to make a choice. We're given free will. And the free will is to either choose love or fear. And the Course in Miracles basically says fear is the mirage, is illusion. So we can choose to hold the thoughts that are creating more love and more life and more awareness and more abundance and more prosperity and more connection and more wholeness in our lives. And we do that on an ongoing basis. It's not just like, okay, no, I thought a loving thought once and it didn't do anything. It's a practice of continually moving yourself back into the consciousness and the energy that is love. It's a practice of continually moving yourself beyond the fear, back into an energy that is a connection to all that is, to the divine, to the oneness. It's a practice to continue to recognize and see abundance, even in the face of the illusion of lack and limitation. And the interesting thing is, one of the things that Jesus taught is this. I thought this was really powerful. The centurion, the story of the centurion. You know, the centurion came to Jesus and said, you know, my servant is ill. Please come to my home and heal my servant. And Jesus and the centurion basically knew that if Jesus came to his home and laid his hands on him or did whatever Jesus did to heal, that the servant would be healed. And Jesus said to him, go. What you have believed is already done. Go. What you have believed. There are different translations of this, but I'm going to suggest to you that in the Aramaic language that Jesus spoke, they didn't really have a lot of tense. They didn't have future tense or past tense per se. But it's been translated as, go and it will be done for you as you have believed. Now that's a way of thinking about it. It will be done for you as you have believed. I'm going to suggest to you that that actually is keeping us stuck. That translation. Because it's really still putting it out there in the future. But what I believe Jesus was teaching us is go. What you believed is already done. And what that means is you have the sense, the feeling, the awareness, the experience, you generate the energy and emotions of what already is done in consciousness. And then it manifests in the world. Jesus said, ask, believing you have received, and you shall receive. This is such an important understanding of this thing we call the law of mind action. In Unity, we're teaching this idea of the law of mind action. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. And so if we hold a thought of something, and we believe that it's going to happen someday, somehow, and we're holding that idea that, oh yeah, well it's, I have faith, it's going to happen. That in a way, we're actually kind of pushing it away out into the future. And so you have to be willing to let go of it's going to happen and really practice the energy, the consciousness of it is so now. And so when you're dealing with a health issue, don't focus on someday I'm going to be healthy. Focus on the awareness of health and wholeness right now, in this moment. And there's the power. That's the real power of this law of attraction that we talk about. And there's a great book. If you want to learn more about this, how this works, and how you can really get an understanding that your thoughts right now are creating your experiences. One is called the Bible. If you read it's all through there. It's all through there. But a more current version of some of those ideas and teachings it's a #1 New York Times bestseller by Pam Grout. And we did a class on this a while back, and there were some amazing experiences that people had working with this. It's 9 do-it-yourself energy experiments that prove your thoughts create your reality. And they're fun, and they're interesting, and they will blow you away if you really do them. Mr. Bill back here did one. I'm going to share your story if you don't mind, Bill, but one of the exercises is to plant, and correct me if I'm a little off on this, but you basically plant different seeds, and you plant them 3 different groups, as I understand it. Is that right? Two different groups? Okay. So one of the groups you go and you water and you talk to and you send it all kinds of, positive energy and loving thoughts. And then the other one, you actually send negative thoughts to. Is that right, Bill? Or you just ignore it?
Don't say anything.
You don't, so you
Don't think anything.
you're neutral.
Pour the water, same picture.
Pour the water, don't do anything. But the one group you send lots of loving thoughts to, I love you and all this, right? And then the other one you actually sent just neutral. You just watered it and went on. And Bill, tell them what happened.
Right away. The third day, the beans were up about an inch where I loved them and blessed them, and no growth at all. And after a week and a half, the beans were that tall that were getting all of up, and the other ones were half. Consistently.
So the ones that he was sending love to grew up significantly, whereas the ones that he didn't, were neutral to, just were about like this, So I'm suggesting to you that what we put this kind of energy into, we are actually creating more of. And there's some amazing little examples of this, little exercises. So, pick up this book and try some of these. But more than anything, focus on what you want to experience as though it is already so. This is the key to really to prayer. Ask, believing you already have received it. And so you practice already having it. You practice being what it feels like to feel loved. And then you share that. Because what you send out, you get back, right? You practice the energy of wholeness and life and feel what that feels like. And imagine it and see it in your mind and feel the energies of it and feel the excitement and enthusiasm of feeling that. You practice having all of the resources that you want and need to not only pay your bills, but to have fun, right? You practice harmony in your relationships, what it feels like to have that, to be at peace in those, as though it already is so. And just watch as things begin to shift. You'll see that there is a shift in the outer world as you begin to shift what you're holding in your thoughts and feelings and energies. So that's really our law of mind of action today. That's how you take charge of your life. You take charge of your life by first taking charge of your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and your belief systems. Let's move into our meditation time. As you breathe into the heart space, let yourself be open to entertain, to invite a divine idea to come into your awareness. And it may bubble up from someplace within you, from your heart. And let that divine idea be an idea of life. And as you let that idea of life rise up within you, let that idea unfold as an awareness and a thought of health and wholeness. And as that thought of health and wholeness arises within you, take a moment now and let yourself feel what that feels like to experience radiant health and wholeness. And bless the body temple with these thoughts. And see every cell of your being radiating with life and health and wholeness. And if there's some part of your physical body that doesn't seem to reflect that or want to reflect that, that's the place where you want to really send love And just see that part of you also now expressing life and health and wholeness. And again, let a divine idea rise up from within you. Let that divine idea be a divine idea of abundance. And bring into your awareness maybe an apple tree. And just think of how many apples are on a single tree. Just see it full of apples. And just think about how many apples there are and apple trees there are in the world. And then just think about how many seeds are in each of those apples. And just be aware of how many apple trees are in those seeds. And just be aware of how many apples are on those trees that are even not yet planted. Just get a sense and a feeling of unlimited. And feel what that feels like to be in you, flowing through you, not just as apples, but as divine substance for whatever need arises. And know that it is right now already filled. Feel what it feels like to have all that you need to be happy, to be healthy, to be content, to have safety and well-being. Feel that energy of abundance filling you. And see it now manifest in just the right and perfect way. Bring into your awareness and let another divine idea rise within you, an idea of love, divine love, the one love, the love that always is and always has been and always will be. And breathe that into your heart. Let that divine idea rise up. And let that divine idea stimulate and generate within you thoughts of connection and compassion and grace. Feel that energy of compassion and grace and love radiating in your heart, and know that you right now are absolutely divinely loved. And if there's some part of you that has trouble accepting that, just say to that part of you, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And let that energy of love fill your heart, and whatever arises within you, send love to it. And let that energy expand your heart even more. And give thanks for the love that always is and that you are here and now. Take another nice deep breath. And know that there is a divine idea in the heart and mind of God that is you. And you have the ability to allow that divine idea to come forth in magnificent ways and great possibilities and unlimited potential for health and wholeness, for life, for abundance and success and prosperity, for love and connection, for wisdom and understanding and guidance. It's all there in you right now, unfolding right now. And give thanks that this is so. Take a nice deep breath. Let your awareness come back into this room, this time and place. Take another nice deep breath. Let your eyes come open. Be present here and now in the fullness of the wonderful power of your creative thought, of you. And so it is. Amen. We at Unity in the Heart of Austin are committed to inspiring people to awaken to their unique divine nature through spiritual teachings, through heart-to-heart connections, through prayer, and through sacred service. And we provide tools, spiritual tools, that allow you to live your best possible life. I'm Reverend Tony Roebuck, minister at Unity in the Heart of Austin, and I truly hope that you are inspired by and that you are transformed by, you enjoy this week's spiritual message. And if you would like to leave a donation, a tithe, to help the work of this ministry in supporting you and others like you, then we are truly grateful for your generosity and for helping to make the world a better place. Because we know that life is meant to be good.